Welcome to Clark County today. We have City Council member Jon Russell from the city of Washougal.
Yes.
And we would like to be able to continue a discussion about the influence of the local representatives, even if it be a small city like the city of Washougal, and how that can impact a state or even a federal project.
It can. We actually had a recent incident that was highlighted, kind of in the papers a little bit, but a lot of people didn't know the full story. One of our council members was put on the Regional Transportation Council, which oversees the funding that comes into the city for transportation projects for the region.
Okay.
And he went and sat on that board, and his first meeting, he voted against 2 projects because he did not like the state mandates that were attached to the money that we were going to be receiving.
Okay.
Okay. When he cast that vote, that message, whether it was through someone that was on the board, maybe even chairing the board, took it and let people up in Olympia know, I don't know. But somehow it got all the way up to Olympia and then came back into a phone call to both our mayors saying, oh, so you don't want this money for these projects, so we'll take it and give it somewhere else.
So that one vote.
That one vote.
Just with that, but basically the influence, the significance of the local influence.
Even though it passed too. It passed. The funding passed for that project.
So in order to take and budget large sums of money from the state or from the federal, they want to make sure that there is local buy-in, that this is really something that the community is saying, yes, we're fully behind this project.
Yes.
And it would not, in their eyes, it looks like, make sense for even to have some division.
Yes.
And that, I believe that's pretty much the message that when Patty Murray came to our area, she basically communicated, in my own paraphrase words here, that if you want this light rail crossing project to proceed, make sure that everybody's for it.
Yes.
Well, the best way I know to do that is let's have a vote. Let's vote on this, and let's have the representatives that are elected, each of these cities, have a vote and say we're for it or we're opposed to it.
I'm going to throw out the politically dirty little secret about the light rail vote.
Okay.
If they are successful at moving that to the 2012 general election, they will create a sub-district, which is much smaller than the rest of CTRAN, the CTRAN district.
Will that exclude Washougal?
It will, more than likely, would probably exclude Washougal. As a matter of fact, you know, whoever draws the lines can draw them the way that they think would maybe benefit the light rail project.
It's really not much of a secret, except maybe a lot of people don't know about it.
Well, they don't know the politics behind it. But who's the #1 proponent in the entire United States for this light rail project?
I believe Siemens, being the manufacturer, the German manufacturer of it, but that's probably the wrong answer, right?
President Obama. How many times has he told us that he wants light rail? How many times has this been an issue that he is supporting? Imagine if CTRAN was on the ballot with light rail in the fall of 2012 in a presidential election year when numbers are extremely high for people who turn out to vote. Imagine if that sub-district was in a district that Obama won very handedly. And imagine President Obama coming into Portland and campaigning for a CTRAN light rail issue to help create jobs. I mean, it's pretty obvious if the stars line up politically what would be possible.
Yes, and I'm all
sure,
for creating jobs, but I think that's a false premise that if you're going to be able to borrow billions of dollars and you're going to tear up all downtown Vancouver and you're going to put unsustainable light rail, that's not going to create private jobs.
Yes.
That might create a whole lot of public jobs that the private industry has to support.
Yes.
So I can see how that would happen. In fact, I was at that CTRAN meeting when that was September 14, I believe it was, or September 17 of last year, 2010. And in the minutes of that meeting, anybody can go to the CTRAN website, they can go to the minutes of that meeting and see what is called out in the minutes. In that meeting, they decided that they're going to have a vote on those two issues, one of them being the light rail vote in November 2011. That's what those minutes say. That's where it stands today. That's the official position. The county, or CTN, was directed to follow through on that. They haven't followed through on that. It's not getting implemented.
Yes.
I assume that as a city council member, if you pass a resolution that says, hey, city, this is what the council directs, you do it, that they're supposed to execute that, right? That gets administered. Administration.
Well, yeah, a resolution
right?
is a reflection of the will of the council. An ordinance would make it into law. And resolution does have some gravity in regards to legality.
Okay.
So it is definitely an issue that is going to be played out on the stage. It must be played out in the public stage, because if the public is left out of the process, then you have people who have a lot to gain financially by getting light rail into Clark County who are going to call the shots.
Some people who personally can get enriched by the money that flows into that, but
or
not
the purchasing of
property,
right, through the purchasing of property.
Yes. But just to get back to those minutes, in those minutes, not only is that vote recorded, but there's also that section that you just referred to, which is a state law that says that after June 30th, 2012, then you can have a subdistrict that can cut out whoever you want to, basically, in order to have a define where it is within your area, in order to have a vote just for them and exclude everybody else who's going to end up paying for this. If it happens this November 2011, then you have to go through the whole all of the C-Tran district. I mean, it's district-wide, which is just about county-wide. And that would be a more representative vote of who's going to pay for this, who's going to use this, who's going to be stuck with who's going to be stuck with having to pay the tolls that are associated with this. The tolls are created by this light rail to start with.
Well, you know how we avert all of this?
How do you?
We avert all of this by electing independent thinking people to city councils and county councils, in particular county council here, to get people who are independently able to think on their feet and aren't buying into this groupthink mentality or man-pleasing mentality where everything they do is to please or impress the other city or to impress other elected officials, but rather to impress the taxpayers. That's how we're going to see the change move. It's not going to be a matter of how vocal we can be at city council members, at city council meetings, even though that's important, and I encourage people to do that. The end result is electing independent thinking people. People who can make decisions on their own and not be swayed by their peers.
Which is good advice. The independent thinkers, I would think that they need to be independent, but they also need to be principle driven. Because you can be independent and be persuaded by some reward that says, hey, you want to be promoted up, you want to become state legislator representative, you want to be able to be a congressperson. Tell you what, you buddy up with me, and I got this political machine that's going to fund all this money to you. You got a great political future, and it's kind of like buying a representative. And that representative has this conflict. Well, I'm either going to represent the people, which are my constituents, or I've got this future that's offered to me that's very lucrative, that's going to ensure my future. So it's really a selflessness versus a selfishness. And that person needs to have some principles that guide them so that they can't be tempted that way. Yeah, that's very much an important part of it. I think one of the hardest part in recruiting candidates is when you find the independent-minded, principled person. It's hard to get them to step out of their comfort zone because most of them are productive citizens. They work hard. All of them are business owners. A lot of them are people who are family-oriented. And they don't have a lot of time for politics. They don't have a lot of time to run for office. And so a lot of the people you get are the antithesis of that. It's people that maybe are there because of this prestige or because of the power or because of the influence that it buys them. It's not for sacrifice because honestly, I look at that people like myself, we weren't involved. Oh, I'm being quacked. People like myself, have been occupied by raising their families and running their business and having relationships with all of the people in their lives, and it takes the sacrifice of time to give up some of that time in order to serve the community.
Yes.
Now, as a council member, how many hours are you putting in a week in order to actually faithfully represent the city?
It really varies. It varies from week to week. There's not a set time amount. Some weeks it could be as little as just attending meetings. Some weeks it could be as intense as 20, 30 hours. And again, this is off of $450 a month. So
$450 a month. So you're not there for the money.
Right.
But you could be potentially there, or anybody could be there just for thinking, this is a stepping stone. Yeah. I've got my eye on higher office.
Sure.
And so you could just be looking at the big bucks coming in for your campaign. and that's laughable to you, because I'm glad that's laughable for you, because you are not motivated for that. In fact, with your term limits, you're not going to continue with the city council. Now, very well, if you show yourself faithful, at this office of city council, then maybe you are a good candidate for a congressman or a state representative.
I tried my hand at that, and it didn't turn out too well for me.
Well, actually, most people lose in the first time, and that's why incumbents, I think, get reelected, because the incumbents have been through it a couple of times. They finally get elected, they figure out how to do it, and once they get elected, they have that natural advantage of experience at a minimum.
Yes.
So don't be discouraged that you didn't win first time.
I'm not discouraged at all. I would almost make the comment, if you always win and you've never lost an election, there's probably something wrong with you. Because when you think about it, if you're always winning elections, you're probably saying things that just people want to hear.
Yes.
And you're not standing up on principle. Abraham Lincoln won and lost so many, and
yes,
that
was the name. I was just going to bring him up, because we just read about Abraham Lincoln just a few days ago, that he lost almost everything, almost every time, and finally he got elected. And we're so glad. I'm so glad they got elected to president, because he ended up being a humble man who was there to serve his country. And what a job he did. He serves as such an example. So I hope that within our community there are people that are willing to sacrifice, to give up some of their time, the precious time. It's one of the most precious commodities that we have. And serve for a selfless reason to make our community a better place. And you have done that. And I'm very grateful that you have, because you've shown yourself faithful over this 5 years, and you still are staying true to your original promise of term limits. Not everybody in this area is staying true to their campaign promises. We can see that very obvious. But integrity is one of those key elements that any faithful representative ought to have. And the best way I know to demonstrate that is see how true are you to your campaign promises. And you have shown yourself faithful.
Thank you.
Well done, sir.
Thanks.